Alright guys, today I want to talk a bit about what's going on in the world and some thoughts that are on my mind. Now keep in mind this video is purely opinion, and it is a strong opinion that those who are running things behind the scenes are in a bit of a clique, a technocratic clique. Now, we've heard of different things, and if you've been reading my blog, you'll see I wrote about Curtis Yarvin, who is a highly influential person who has written many books and has written online about the need to change the United States into more of an monarchy, a sort of oligarchical, technocratic monarchy, meaning, let's go ahead and listen to one of the associates of this person, Mark Andreessen, and on the Lex Friedman podcast. So I'm going to be covering some of this. There's also connections here to Palantir and Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk, he puts on a great show, in my opinion. Puts on a great show, and there are a lot of gullible people out there. I hope I'm not offending anyone. I mean, we all want to believe in these optimistic idealations that there is this free speech promotion and that it's really about promoting freedom. But behind the scenes, you got to watch the actions. You got to watch the money flow. And if you follow the money, you generally see where you're headed. So forget what they're talking about. Forget what all the politicians talk about. And this is not meant to be a right or left video. This is a very serious video because I think we're all around the world in immense danger right now because of the aspirations and the self-empowerment that is being run by what I believe are complete technocrats. Now, this also connects into J.D. Vance. Now, J.D. Vance was sponsored by someone known as the head of Palantir, Peter Thiel. Now, Peter Thiel also has connections to Alex Karp, the other person that runs Palantir. Now, within this movement of technocrats, we see an interest in actually retiring all government employees with full pensions. And this is something Curtis Yarvin himself wrote about, and you can see that in my blog post. So he wants to retire and get rid of as many federal employees as possible, basically to disempower the federal government, what they see as a threat to the technocratic powers. And in order, this one person, actually a Google engineer, wants to appoint Eric Schmidt as the CEO of America. Well, Eric Schmidt happens to be on a board, or at least it was when I was reading about it, some Freedom of Information documents that came from Epic, which is a privacy and freedom organization online. And these documents stated that the board that Eric Schmidt belongs to, the National Security Council on Artificial Intelligence, well, they believed that we need to surpass China in order to get ahead with AI. And because AI requires data, you need more data to have a more efficient, more powerful AI. And the only way to do that is to continually increase surveillance until we're essentially all slaves in a modern type of way. Now, in this belief system, something I found universal between all of them is they want to turn the U.S. into a monarchy where a single CEO type of leader is the head of it. Now, this is something that Curtis Yarvin has talked about. He's also connected to the Mark Andreessen person, the Peter Thiel, and of course, the funding and high influence over J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance has talked highly of the writings of Curtis Yarvin. And Curtis Yarvin is the one who's really the thought leader here. He is a philosopher for the technocrats. He believes that we need to appoint a CEO, and he admits this is a dictator. He says a CEO essentially is a dictator of a corporation, and that what the U.S. needs is a dictator, a CEO of the country under, just like what we were looking at, this whole thing about oligarchy. Now, oligarchy is how it starts, but essentially what the goal is to have a monarch, a single dictator in charge on the technical side. Now, what's interesting about this is before the current administration came into power, there were leaks in European papers about the current administration that we have in office in the U.S. wanting to give tech companies governing powers over the U.S. So it's all fitting together perfectly like a puzzle. Everything that I'm saying fits so well, it's hard to believe it's just my opinion. Let's continue.
Take a step back to say what he meant by oligarchy, because it has multiple meanings. So basically, in classic political theory, there's basically three forms of government at core. There's democracy, which is rule of many. There's oligarchy, which is rule of the few. And there's monarchy, which is rule of the one.
And so what he says here, Mark Andreessen, he says that America is an oligarchy. But really what his friends want, and what we can learn most about someone, is by who they surround themselves with, especially the people that are sort of behind the scenes of everything, the influencers. So if you want to understand someone, you need to look at who are their influencers, and we can learn more than what they say by who they surround themselves with, and the belief systems of those people, if it is an open belief system, as we see with Curtis Yarvin. We can pretty much tell what they likely all believe. And they believe they want to basically put Palantir in charge in a lot of ways, to give them essentially contracts. He actually had a company at one time. It may still be in business, I'm not sure. But they essentially take the blood from young people, 16 to 25 years old, and then they harvest for their blood plasma in order to try and gain some kind of youth benefits. Of course, there is this obsession with living forever, or at least extending your life as long as possible. So the company's called Ambrosia, and it was actually shuttered its doors earlier in the year, but it looks like that same year it actually went back in business because, as we know, Dracula must feed. To me, this is absolutely frightening. And the fact that we have so many people supporting what's going on. I try not to make this a political channel, but I have never been more concerned with an administration than I am right now. And I'm not even somebody who voted for Biden. I'm not even someone who voted for Biden, but I also didn't vote for Trump. But you got to see it for what it is. This is a technocratic, aspirational administration that is talking about things like Stargate. Check out my video on that, where they are looking towards giving more empowerment to these corporations, these tech companies. And if you follow the technocratic movement, another interesting connection to those who worship Elon Musk, his grandfather actually was part of the technocracy movement. So in Canada, his grandfather had a big part in that. So let's go ahead and just search for Elon Musk. Okay, so as it says here, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrested members of the Technocracy Incorporated movement, charging them with belonging to an illegal organization. Now, one of those people arrested was actually Joshua Haldeman, a Regina area chiropractor and a former director of Technocracy Incorporated. And guess who he is? He just happens to be the maternal grandfather of Elon Musk. You know, I also noticed one of Elon's exes and baby mamas actually had the word technocracy in her Twitter profile at one point. I found that quite interesting. This was at the time they were together, and I think we can learn quite a bit by, as I mentioned, the people they surround themselves with. Mark Andreessen here, he defends oligarchy. And oligarchy is a form of government where power is concentrated into the hands of a very small group of people who rule for their own interests. Now, what's so dangerous about this form of government? Well, anytime you have a small group of people trying to rule over the many, they have no other option but to create totalitarian, militant actions on the masses. So mass surveillance is just one aspect of that. Militarizing police, yet another. Bringing the military, the contracts, all of this together. We even hear private military organizations talking about coming in and doing forms of policing in the U.S. This is pure oligarchy. And then, of course, you know, J.D. Vance, he loves the writings of Curtis Yarvin. So let's learn a little more about him. So here we have the trio here. We have Peter Thiel here. We have J.D. Vance, who actually, I believe he actually may have worked with Peter Thiel. Now, what's interesting, Peter Thiel's also highly connected to Elon Musk. Now, they actually started PayPal together, and they are still friends. But Peter Thiel tries to remain a bit more behind the scenes, but he did help fund the Trump campaign. So you know there is big influence when you know that Elon Musk gave the Trump campaign over $100 million personally. And now we see him being the one standing, giving the speeches at the boardroom meetings in the White House while everyone listens attentively. Here's that Curtis Yarvin. He's the one who believes we need a monarchy, a technocratic monarchy specifically, where he believes that these tech leaders and Palantir, he talks about wanting more Palantir contracts to make America great. This is not normal stuff. This is not normal at all. So here we are looking at the article from Free Thought Project. They actually have some great work out there. So if you want to learn about the things that aren't always being covered, it's a good website. So apparently one of the largest influencers on Peter Thiel is a man named Curtis Yarvin, as mentioned. He's also known by a pen name, Mencius Moldbug. I haven't actually read a lot of his work, but he is behind something called the Dark Enlightenment movement. Now, what's interesting is Elon Musk himself on the stage said, "I have a dark MAGA hat." Now, I did wonder, is that in relation to the Dark Enlightenment movement espoused by Curtis Yarvin? Very well could be. Now, his writing has been very influential in those in the big tech community, especially those that are gravitating around the current administration. Now, he specifically argues that American democracy and representative government has failed and should be replaced by a monarchy with similarities to corporate governance structures. Now, he even says it's a dictator. He admits he's talking about a dictator. And as I just mentioned, the fewer the people that rule over a country, the more authoritarian, the more totalitarian your life is going to become. That is the only result. There is no way to rule the masses with a few people unless you come down hard on them. You have to come down hard on them. You've got to have the technology implemented to surveil them in every aspect of their life. He also talks about this in more depth. He talks about how much people will need to be tracked in order to accomplish these goals. So I do hope you'll share this video, because there's so many naive people out there, so many gullible people out there, and you would think by now they would have woken up by this. And you know, Elon puts on a great show. He really does. And I understand why some people fall for it. We want to see the hopeful side. We want to believe optimistically. I can understand that. I understand. But it also is a bit infuriating when you see what's happening and you see people ignore the concerns and just cheer it on, cheer it on, cheer it on. It is mind-blowing. I am blown away. But then I also wonder, and I say, well, how many of these people are actually bots? So maybe they're not really supporting everything blindly. Mind you, I'm talking about blindly supporting it, where people will defend every action no matter how suspicious it looks. And then they're also going to cut social services and things that, you know, help the most vulnerable. I can't get behind that at all. I just can't. I don't define myself as a socialist or whatever you want to call it, but I do think that to give tax breaks to billionaires, you've got to be kidding me. How can, this is just further centralizing power. This is just further moves to create a dependency population on these corporate technocratic overlords. I hope people can see it for what it is, because it is unbelievable. I am day by day more and more surprised. But then I also remind myself, these people are probably bots. People who are blindly supporting this, probably bots. But that's also what's so dangerous about the purchase of Twitter, and why I really encourage people to move further away from it, because we don't want to be in a society that is dependent on a platform that is run by those who surround themselves with friends that are technocratic oligarchs with the hope for a future dictator monarch, technocrat. That is not a world you want to live in. I don't care who you are. This is not a good world. Because the reality is when they put this technology in, you're going to be helpless. You're going to be at their mercy. They're going to literally do whatever the hell they want. There's no stopping them once this infrastructure is fully completed. This is something people need to really look at because, we're not going to learn anything by what politicians say or what by some of these technocratic people say. And their own families are associated with this movement. So this goes on multi-generational aspirations for a technocratic society. Keep in mind, just opinion, but I am very skeptical of all of this. And you see in this recent video where Lex Friedman interviewed Mark Andreessen, I was shocked at the level of normalization he put to oligarchy. There's nothing good about oligarchy. As mentioned, the fewer the people that are trying to rule a country or a world, the more authoritarian their rule is going to come down on every single person. Doesn't matter if you're their supporter or not. You're going to be part of keeping in line effort, the technocratic, technological prowess that they're going to enforce. And Curtis Yarvin talks about the need for total tracking and surveillance for this technocratic world. Go ahead and check out his book, Technocratic, or I think it was Technocratic Republic, something like that. But check out the writings for yourself. I encourage you, check it out. Because the only solution they have, and they are so thrilled about this. So they say it's a libertarian thing. I have a lot of libertarian leanings, a lot of them. I am a truly free speech absolutist. I don't believe in any restriction to speech. Obviously I don't agree with people making threats to others, but I believe we need to be all able to have conversations together and not drive extremism underground. That's where things get violent. When extremists aren't even able to express themselves, they're hidden. They're hidden from society. And then that's where we get problems. Now, Alex Karp credits himself with getting rid of terrorism in Europe. They're essentially making themselves out to be your savior. And that is the theater that we are seeing today. Now, if you noticed where Elon Musk took out the chainsaw on stage recently at CPAC, well, that was very similar to Malay. Now, do you know what Malay did? I think we'll learn a lot about what's coming based on what Malay did, because they are following the book of Malay, where Malay was actually basically cutting the same thing, federal workers. And what that does is it weakens the checks and balances in the federal government. When you cut the federal workforce, you are actually empowering technocratic type of monarchy, oligarchy type of worlds that they're trying to build. You need to weaken the federal government in order to build those kinds of worlds. And unless you're already extremely wealthy, I guess you could buy your way into just about anything, but we got to be thinking about our rights as well. No matter where you stand financially. The reality is, the group of a few that want to turn this world into a technocratic society, that is going to lead us into hell. A technocratic hell. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to share some of this information with you just off the cuff. I'm really concerned about it because there's so many people seemingly supporting every turn in this. And, it's not a good place we're headed to, in my opinion, especially if people are openly supporting it so much. I guess if you're a billionaire, you consider it freedom to be the overlords. And that's just how it looks, guys. That's just how it looks. It's just, and to see his propaganda interview, Andreessen, talking about how it's always an oligarchy, everything's an oligarchy, it's where it always goes, like it's a normalization of it. No, I'm not falling for it. This is totalitarianism in the making, and to call for a monarchy. Remind you, this is just a single person, a technology takeover of the U.S. government. And if you're looking at what's going on, you can't deny this. This is a technocratic takeover of the U.S. government. That's just what it is, and this is my opinion, but I am firm on that opinion, and I really, really believe it. So, what do you think? Is this the promotion of freedom, liberty? Is this libertarianism at its finest? Are you supporting this stuff? I mean, come on. Let's not be gullible. I want to hear your opinion, though. I mean, I'm not going to insult anyone. I just think it's really naive to support all of these characters. So if you care about your rights, if you care about your freedoms, if you care about the future for your family, I don't think where we're headed is a good direction. But let me know what you think. Do you think Elon Musk is here to save us all? Do you think it's a good direction that we're headed? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. Honestly, I want to know what you think. Give me a different perspective. Somebody share something with me that's a different direction. Share some hopeful visions with me, because I'd love to hear a more optimistic view of how this all fits together. Because from what I'm seeing, it's looking like there truly is a turning over of governance to technology oligarchs. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll be back later with more on how to protect your security and privacy.
How it's supposed to feel.